let us start today's class. We shall start our discussion with the distinction between returns to factor and returns to scale. Now, returns to factor is a short-run phenomenon. According to the definition of returns to factor, it implies change in the output due to change in the variable inputs. Okay. So specifically in the definition we have mentioned that it refers to change in output due to change in variable inputs. Okay. So returns to factor basically occurs when the production function is something like this. One is fixed and the change in output can be brought about by changing the input, that is the labor, keeping capital constant. So this type of production function exists only in the short run. So this returns to factor exists in the short run. However, in case of returns to scale, the definition goes something like, it refers to change in output due to change in all the inputs. Here there is no specifically mentioning about whether the inputs are variable or fixed. Here all the inputs are changed, and in which time period all the inputs can be changed? It is the long run. So in case of returns to factor, the production function look like this, and a change in output can be brought about by changing any of the inputs or all of the inputs. Okay, so returns to factor is a long run phenomenon, and returns to factor is a short run phenomenon, and returns to scale is a long run phenomenon, and it belongs to long run, it belongs to short run. This is the production function relating to returns to factor. This is the production function relating to returns to scale. Then it is of three types. What are the three types? Increasing returns to factor, constant returns to factor, and decreasing returns to factor. When the proportional change in the variable input is less than the proportional change in output, then it implies there is increasing returns to scale. Listen to my words. When the proportional change in input is when the proportional change in the variable inputs is less than the proportional change in the output, then it is a case of increasing returns to factor. Again, if the proportional change in input, variable input, is equals to the proportional change in the output, then it is a case of constant return to scale, constant returns to factor. Okay, and if the proportional change in variable input is greater than the proportional change in output, then it is a case of decreasing returns to factor. So over here, let us consider the variable input to be L. So what I said just few moments ago implies that change in labor, if change in labor is greater than change in output, then it implies decreasing returns to factor. Similarly, if change in labor is equals to change in output, it implies constant returns to factor. Or change in labor is less than change in output, then it implies increasing returns to factor. Okay, so here we have only changed the labor, that is the variable inputs, and depending upon the proportion of change in inputs, that is the variable inputs, and the proportional change in output, the returns to factor can be classified under three heads. In case of returns to scale, there are also three types. However, here all the factors can be changed. Here we won't classify labor and or capital as specifically as variable input, rather all the inputs are variable. So here change in inputs, if change in inputs is less than change in output, that implies increasing returns to scale IRS. If change in inputs is equals to proportional change in output, then it implies constant returns to scale, and change in input is greater than change in output, then it implies diminishing returns to scale. Okay. These concepts of returns to scale and returns to factor are very important in the chapter of production function or producer's behavior, for understanding the phenomena relating to cost, then for understanding the law of variable proportion, and so on. So I hope this concept is clear, because you have already got it in your junior classes. We shall move towards the law of variable proportion. The next topic is law of variable proportion. Now, according to the definition, or the law states that as we go on increasing the variable inputs, okay, to increase the output in the short run, the marginal productivity first increases, it reaches a maximum point, then starts declining, and eventually it becomes zero or negative. The law states that as we go on increasing the variable input to increase the output, keeping at least one factor fixed, then the marginal productivity first increases, then reaches maximum point, and then starts declining and eventually becomes negative. Okay, so this is just a gist definition. Okay, over here I have explained the law in terms of marginal productivity. Some books or some other teachers may explain in terms of total productivity. In case of total productivity, the statement would have been, the law states that as we go on increasing the variable inputs to increase the output, keeping at least one factor fixed, then the total product first increases at an increasing rate, then it starts increasing at a decreasing rate, it reaches a maximum point, and then eventually it starts declining. Okay, so this law can be represented diagrammatically, and it has three phases. Over here we will measure variable input, say labor, okay, and over here we will measure total product and marginal product and also average product. If someone wants to represent average product, he can plot it, but mainly the diagram consists of, or the thing we will discuss is regarding the total product and the marginal product only. Okay. So initially, as we go on increasing labor, marginal product increases, it reaches a maximum point over here, and then starts falling. It becomes zero over here, and eventually it becomes negative. Okay. is the curve of marginal product. Now, depending upon how you have drawn your marginal product, you have to draw your total product by maintaining their relationship. Now, what is the relationship between marginal product and total product? You have to first know that. When marginal product increases, total product increases at an increasing rate. At a increasing rate. Okay? When marginal product decreases, total product, when marginal product decreases but still positive, total product increases at a decreasing rate. When marginal product is 0, total product is maximum. When marginal product is negative, total product falls. So in the above two cases, marginal product first increases and is positive, means over this part. So when marginal product is increasing and is positive, total product will increase at an increasing rate. Okay? Then when marginal product starts falling but still is positive over this phase, marginal product is falling but is still positive, then total product will still increase but at a decreasing rate. Okay? When marginal product is 0, total product will be maximum. That means at this point marginal product is 0. So just corresponding to this point, total product will be maximum over here. And as marginal product becomes negative over this part, beyond this point, total product will start falling. So after this point, it will start falling. TP. So this is the diagram for the law of variable proportion, which is drawn keeping in mind the relationship between TP and MP. So before drawing the diagram, you should know the relationship between these two curves. Okay. Now we will divide this diagram into 3 phases. The first phase would be till the point where MP is rising. First phase. Okay. Then the second phase will be from this point, say point L1 to point L2, till the point MP becomes negative. Okay. This is the second phase. Till the point MP becomes 0, not negative, sorry. So the first phase is all about increase in the marginal product, and it extends till the point till marginal product becomes maximum. And in the second phase, we are considering the phase of decline in the marginal product, and it extends till the point where marginal product becomes 0. And beyond this L2 point, we have the third phase, where marginal product becomes negative and the total product also starts falling. So in the first phase, what are we witnessing? Marginal product increasing at a marginal product is increasing and total product is also increasing at an increasing rate. So this is the first phase. In the second phase, what are we witnessing? Marginal product decreases, total product increases but at decreasing rate. In the third phase, marginal product becomes negative, total product starts falling. So these are the 3 phases of law of variable proportion, and the extensive and the detailed study of this law is already done by you in your junior classes. So I would recommend you to go through this law once again, very minutely, go through the assumptions and the limitations, And what is the limitation of this? Most important limitation of this law is that it exists only in the short run, because over here what are we saying? We are saying that the law states, as we go on increasing the variable input, keeping one factor, at least one factor constant or fixed, uh, the total product first increases at an increasing rate, then it increases at a decreasing rate, it reaches maximum and then falls. So in the first line of the definition we are speaking about the variable factor and the fixed factor. So obviously the definition itself implies that this law belongs to the short run. So this law cannot be applicable in the long run, when there are all the inputs are variable. So this is one of the major demerits of this law, and there are several demerits. I would recommend you to go through them thoroughly, because this is one of the important topic. You should also go through why the first phase occurs, that means why the TP is increasing at an increasing rate initially. It is because the ratio between the fixed and the variable factor is in your favor at the initial stage of production. The number of fixed factor in the initial stage of production is greater than the number of variable factors in the initial stage of production. The machines are in huge quantity in the initial machines or capital assets are in huge quantity at the initial level of production, and we have minimum or very less amount of variable inputs such as labor to operate them. So the work at the initial state of production is going very smoothly. There is division of labor, there is specialization of labor, all the laborers are working hard and they are focused in their work, and there is no labor union and the problem associated with it at the initial stage of production when the variable factors are less. As we gradually move on and keep on adding the labors, the number of labors get accumulated and the machines starts getting depreciated, and as the number of labors get accumulated, the ratio between the fixed and the variable factor starts moving away from your beneficial point, or starts going against your motive, or starts going against your favor. Okay, so as we go on increasing the labor, what we are witnessing that the labors are accumulating, and now managing these labors is getting difficult. They are forming labor union, they are doing strikes. So as we go on increasing the labor, the marginal productivity of labor or the variable factors keep on falling. Initially it was rising as there were less labor and more amount of capital assets. So managing the labors and using the capital resources efficiently was possible. Now as the resources or the inputs go on increasing, managing them becomes difficult, and after L2 point the labors are getting saturated. Now we are witnessing disguised unemployment. Okay, now the labor force or the variable input force has become so large that managing them has become impossible, rather, and in spite of giving us benefit in the production point, they are rendering us losses. Okay, so there are several factors through which you can explain the three phases of the law of variable proportion, and mainly it exists in the short term. Now let us start discussing one important diagram plus concept, that is the diagram of reached line. and the concept of economic region of production.